All right, everybody, I am back with a brand new video. And this is a video I wanted to do over the weekend, but I wanted to make sure I was able to see Alien Romulus one more time before I talked about spoilers, plot holes, and connections to other films. And just so you know, I am a massive Alien Universe fan. Now, I'm not talking about the comic books or novels, but I am talking about the movies themselves. Now, I am least familiar with Alien 3 and Resurrection, although I do remember those films quite well. I'm well more versed in Prometheus, Alien Covenant, Alien, and Aliens, with Alien being my favorite film in the franchise. And we're going to talk about, the first thing I'm going to discuss are the two biggest plot holes in the film. So what I'm going to assume is that you have already seen the film. If you have not, some of this probably isn't going to make a whole lot of sense to you. But the basic plot of the film is we have these young 20-somethings trying to get off this Weyland-Yutani mining planet that doesn't get any type of sunlight, and they found a way out by taking some cryopods from this decommissioned Weyland space station called not Romulus. There's also Remus. It's two parts of a space station. And when they go there, they are confronted, within that first hour, confronted with a heck of a lot of facehuggers. Now, the opening of the film ties directly into Alien. And in my opinion, the opening of the film is what I wanted to see more of. It had a great feel, a great look to it. It looked like Alien. It had this awesome feel, like you were pulled right into this world where they are visiting the destruction of Nostromo, and they pull in the alien from space, and it's kind of in a cocoon, and they decide, you find out later on that they did experiments, that it actually got loose and caused a lot of damage, but they were able to capture it and do some experiments on it. And what's crazy about this is that alien, that xenomorph, is known as the Big Chap by fans of the series. And Big Chap was not an alien queen and could not produce facehuggers. So how did Romulus get facehuggers? Now, we've always known that Weyland-Yutani was after this species. And I want to talk about how this was going to tie into the prequels, because in Alien, they made it very clear in the film Alien, and if you go back and watch it now, with this knowledge, you'll see this connection, that Weyland-Yutani was always aware of this organism. They wanted this organism. It's why the original people doing the mining in the first film went to that planet, LV-426. They were basically sent there. And Ripley was the only survivor. And this film, like I said, we don't see Ripley. It takes place, I can't remember how many years after Alien it took place, but it's a number of years, not the 80 years or so that Aliens takes place, not even close to that. But they don't explain how Romulus actually got the facehuggers. It's a huge plot hole, and I asked Fede Alvarez this on social media yesterday, and I didn't get any type of response because there are two major plot holes. That's the first one. In a minute, I'm going to talk about how it ties into Prometheus and Alien Covenant. But the other plot hole is at the very end. At the very end, Kay ends up, she was pregnant, and because she injects herself with the same goo that was from Prometheus, they actually discuss Prometheus in the movie, they tie it all together, and she injects herself to save her life, and she has that alien hybrid baby. But it's more than just an alien-human hybrid. It also has the face of an engineer. At no point during anywhere in the Alien franchise did they ever even suggest that the goo had any type of engineer DNA in it whatsoever. In fact, in the opening of Prometheus, we see an engineer being dropped off on a planet, and he drinks some of the goo, and he dissolves, and it shows that it's breaking up his DNA and completely destroying his DNA. And as I take it, and as it appears to be throughout the films, that the engineers were always looking for the perfect organism, and they go and they destroy life on planets for various reasons. They are the engineers, and you're led to believe that they are kind of the god of everything, and they set up planets and then destroy them and start over, that sort of a thing. You kind of get that sense. And they've always been looking for that perfect organism, which they see in the aliens. And that in Prometheus, at the beginning of this, we see that they're experimenting with the goo. That's what you take that to be, and that they continue to experiment with it. And you find that out throughout Prometheus. Now, we never got the final film in the trilogy because you had Prometheus, which led into David creating aliens in Alien Covenant. But the thing is, he was not the architect of the aliens. That already existed. The engineers had it. David was just trying to replicate what they were doing on his own through research. And that wasn't the engineer's actual planet. Now, we never got Ridley Scott's final film in that trilogy that was going to tie directly into Alien. In Alien, you have the engineer sitting in the chair, and his chest had been burst open. And we don't know how that all happened. All we know is that ship had alien eggs all over it. Now, this is where things get interesting because Ridley Scott never gave us that third film. But I have read an article where he talked about this a little bit, and I think the plan was for David to go to the planet where the engineer is actually their home planet. They get really upset with what David did, doing these experiments on his own. They get really upset and decide to destroy mankind, and that they sent that ship that crash landed on LV-426, that they were sending that ship with that payload to Earth to destroy mankind. But David obviously does something that causes it to crash, maybe left a facehugger on board, and we know how that ends up. In my mind, and from what I've heard from Ridley Scott himself, this is where I think he was going to go with the film. I think it was going to be called Alien Awakening, if I'm not mistaken. So this film has those big plot holes. There was no way they could have had the face huggers on Romulus because aliens hadn't even happened. We hadn't seen a queen alien yet because we know that Weyland-Yutani sent a colony to go live on LV-426, and they did it. It was a maniacal type of situation where they were sending people there to be experimented on by the aliens. So they were always aware that the organism was on LV-426, and we don't know to what extent. Now, David was always transmitting stuff back to Weyland-Yutani, and we know that. They confirmed that in Romulus because of the Prometheus files, in which Rook, who was basically a version of Ash from Alien, where he had talked about how they had the Prometheus files and they were able to recreate the goo, which she had injected herself with, which created that hybrid. But at no point during any of this do they even hint that the goo had any type of engineered DNA in it. So those are two huge plot holes. Outside of that, the film was actually pretty solid. I actually enjoyed it. Now, there were a couple things I didn't enjoy. I didn't think they needed to create the line where he said, "Get away from her." That hadn't happened yet. That was Ripley's line. That should not. I thought that was disrespectful to the series in general. There were a lot of tie-ins to Alien 3, also into Alien Resurrection. In fact, the ending is more like Alien Resurrection, having a baby made off of her DNA and mixing it with alien DNA. Same thing happened with Ripley's clone in Alien Resurrection. So there is a connection there. He did kind of tie it into all the films. But here's the problem with everything. We never got an end to Ridley Scott's trilogy. They need to fill in that gap. Now we have the Alien Romulus that has the questions of how did they even get the face huggers to begin with? It makes absolutely no sense. And how, now we've got Kaylee's character, Rain, going to this planet, and she's in possession of the alien goo. And so that has nothing to do with what's going to happen in Aliens with Ripley and, them finding her and getting her out of the cryo state and then having to go back to LV-426 to have to deal with the infestation and the alien queen. That has nothing to do with that. So we now have these two unfinished storylines that they've started. And it kind of reminds me of the Terminator franchise where, in my opinion, I really liked that the Terminator Salvation film. That's my favorite film in the franchise. And they didn't follow up on that. The next film had absolutely nothing to do with that film. And then that film didn't do well, so they did another film that had nothing to do with that film. they didn't follow up on any of those storylines. And so I have a feeling that's kind of where Alien is going. Now, we are also getting an Alien TV show called Alien Earth. And they had a little teaser for that from Fox that just got released on YouTube. You can go watch that. It's very short, but that show is coming, I believe, early next year. And it's going to be interesting to see where this follows in the timeline. All we know is that we didn't get any answers as to that alien DNA. How did it get into the goo? How did they get those face huggers? Someone please explain to me how that happened, because as far as I can tell, that was never shown anywhere. Now, one cool thing that they did in the movie that was not discussed anywhere else and could actually added to kind of the aliens themselves is that after they shed their skin after the first transformation, that they kind of put themselves in a cocoon before they hatch as the much larger full version, which is kind of cool because we didn't see anything like that in Aliens and we didn't see anything like that in Alien. And so that was a pretty cool thing, a cool addition to the whole thing. But it, like I said, at the end of the day, I gave my original review, I gave it 3 stars. After seeing it again, I gave it 4. Now, let's talk about one thing I didn't enjoy about the film other than some of the quoting. The look of the corridor where the aliens were, we didn't get to see a queen alien. All we know is that there were a bunch of aliens down this corridor, and the lighting and the mood of that corridor could have been a lot better. And there's a sequence where it's going from like person to person. They're trying to make it look like a horror movie when that's not what Alien and Aliens was ever meant to be. It was more suspense and action. The lighting and everything doesn't match the other films. It didn't have this crazy look to it. It was too out in the open. It had a very cheap 90s look to it, and I didn't like that part of the film. But at the end of the day, I think I'd give the film 4 stars, and I do rank it. I still rank it 5th in the series. I do like Prometheus, Alien Covenant, Alien, and Aliens much more than I did Alien Romulus. But it's a nice addition to the franchise. But those 2 major plot holes really knock it down. That's why I can't give it a solid 5 stars. If they had really explained, I wanted more at the beginning of the film. Show us more of how they set up Romulus. That would have been a better story to tell. They could have done another trilogy with this where they have the whole Romulus storyline, show what happened with Romulus, or then do this film, call it something else, and then have a third film that finishes off and rides it directly into the Aliens franchise, because they have some connections here they have to make. And if we never get a sequel, these are questions that are never going to get answered. And there really does need to be an answer as to how they had the facehuggers and how the alien DNA was in there. These are things that haven't been explained and don't make any sense. All right, guys, if you've seen the film, what did you think about the film itself and kind of my commentary on this? I would appreciate the comments below. And if you haven't already, I'm looking for those 20,000 subs. So please like the video, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and you will be notified as I have new videos go up.